You have just reached quorum, so.
You know, while we're killing a little time, I don't know if anybody watched the country music awards last night. You know, that's kind of that show you can watch as you're just kind of trying to not think about really intense things, right? But they had a segment. Eric Church wrote a song for the victims of the hurricane in Helene. It's an amazing song. I encourage people to listen to it. If you've never heard, it's called Darkest Hour. And it talks about all of us rising to a level of human compassion. And even if we can help someone for just a minute, relieve their darkest hour, and it touches from homelessness to tragedy to economic downfall. And I literally was just listening to it again, and I would encourage people to listen to it and bring that side of us to all these spaces that we enter into in a very humble space of gratitude. Eric Church in Darkest Hour.
Thanks, Allison.
You're going to think I'm a big, huge country person, but I'm really not. It's just a great song.
We've established a quorum, so you can get ready whenever you're started, or we're started whenever you're ready.
Thanks. Okay, my name's Allison Kerr. I am the co-chair of the Homeless Prevention and Response System, HPRS Advisory Council. I'm reminded all the time that when we say sometimes all of these initials, no one quite knows what each of our role is. So with this council, we are the Homeless Prevention and Response System of the COC, Continuum of Care. So with that, I'd like to welcome everyone to the meeting. I'd welcome the council members and then any guests that we might have. You're all welcome here, and we will get started with, I believe Roger's on here, right, Roger, for the land acknowledgement?
I am, and
Thanks, Roger.
We are working on pulling it up here.
Okay.
Oh, tiny.
A land acknowledgement is a formal statement recognizing the indigenous people of a place. It is a public gesture and appreciation for the past and present indigenous stewardship of the lands that we now occupy. The Anchorage Coalition to End Homelessness and the HPRS Advisory Council would like to acknowledge the Dena'ina Athabascan people on whose traditional lands we gather, as well as all indigenous people of Alaska. For thousands of years, the Dena'ina have been and continue to be the stewards of this land. We would like to express our gratitude and respect for the past and present stewardship of the waters, plants, animals, and spiritual practices of this place, and the contributions, innovations, and contemporary perspectives of the Upper Cook Inlet Dena'ina people.
Thanks, Roger.
Yes.
Do we have any volunteers for a mission moment? I know I have one. So tonight there's 63 leaders in this community that's going to be sleeping out in recognition for the homeless youth experiencing homelessness month of November, as well. It's our CEO sleep out. We're joined tonight with the mayor and the First Lady of State of Alaska. And the best part about it is 15 young people are going to be leading all the table discussions about what the leaders need to know and understand about youth homelessness. So while I'm getting a little older, and this is, I think, my, I don't know, 13th or 14th one, I do see it as a great space for a lot of leaders to maybe get rid of a little judgment and to learn and understand from young people what this experience is like. So yes, it will be a little cold. I think it's supposed to be between 5 to 8. But that's not the coldest night that people are experiencing in our community. And so my goal is that we all make it, but that we all learn from the process. And I know that many people will wake up tomorrow feeling different about this experience. So just grateful to be a part of it.
That's awesome.
Do I have anybody else that would like to share a mission moment? And I do want to be a little mindful. They're all expecting me there a little earlier than, and I don't want to rush this meeting, but if it gets too close to the end, I might ask one of Roger or someone if they can close the meeting out. It doesn't look good when every single person beats me there. So we'll try to get there on time. So I appreciate a little
And
patience.
grab your warm sleeping bag on the way.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I just had to find some hand warmers. So, okay. Seeing no other mission moments, which we have many times, we will always take a moment in this agenda to celebrate and shout out to a mission moment or some point of inspiration. So always feel free to bring those forward. The consent agenda. So you have copies of the agenda, and I want to see if there are any changes before the agenda is approved, as well as we do these both together, consent agenda. So any changes to the October minutes? Okay, you guys are going to make this easy. Go ahead, sorry.
This is Sharon. I move to approve the consent agenda.
And this
I'll
is Grace.
second it.
I second. Oh, we're in competition.
There you go. Matt, did you get the second? You had a couple of options there. Okay. So with the agenda approved, then we're going to kind of go on into, this is the part where I'll also ask for a little grace on a special presentation. So I know that Robin is not on here, and she's the other co-chair with me on the
Robin is here.
HPRS.
I'm here.
I'm sorry, is Robin here?
Yep, I'm here.
Oh, good, good. So one of the things that we've talked about is that, gosh, I've been now on the council for a year and a half, and each time there is a meeting that I'm attending, I'm learning more and more about what our role is as the HPRS. What is the separation of purpose from the coalition? You know, all the various things that I don't know if I thought it was intuitive to begin with, but it definitely is not intuitive. And one of the things that we talked about, we had a retreat, and it's been almost a year. You know, it was fall of last year, and Michael Fredericks led the retreat. At the time, we had a full roster of board members. We've subsequently lost about 5 of those board members. And at the retreat, we had 10 in attendance. And so we felt like it might be necessary in the spring for us to actually really do a retreat that then we can bring forward some additional learning about what the role is of each of the members. We have several candidates that are interested in potentially taking a space until the next vote, but that wouldn't be until after the first of the year. Also, this is the first year that HUD and its COC is doing 2-year funding. And so what used to be a very compressed cycle of our continuum of care is now moved to a 2-year. So the cadence to meetings, the ways that we can increase public participation, the ways that us as council member can understand each of our work that is going on in each committee. I really feel like that with the opportunity for us looking at possibly in February, so not too late into the spring, but that we can start out the first of the year really understanding role and then really jumping into kind of the correct cadence of it. I know that we've had a group that has kind of hung with us in these various board positions or council positions and been very patient about the learnings. About 2 weeks ago, Robin and myself participated in the coalition's retreat, of which there was one sheet of paper in there that was the clearest I have ever seen on what is the role of the HPRS and what is the role of the lead for the HPRS, which is the Anchorage Coalition. And so with that, I want to make sure that instead of just sending out the information, that we work as a group to answer everyone's questions, to really get on the same page, to make sure that each committee structure of the 4 committees has a chair co-chair process so that we have some continuity in our learning. And hopefully this is the last time we'll need to build the infrastructure around HPRS so that it's not a people dependent homeless response system, homeless prevention response system. It's a system that is able to adapt, pivot as needed to follow what are current best practices in this work. So with that, I'm happy to entertain any questions from council members, guests on here. Robin, if you feel like there's anything additional that I should add, I'm happy to do that as well. But I know that we have a couple of things that I would love to make sure that we have an opportunity for conversation. And so with that, I would like to hear if there's any questions, concerns about that. Thoughts?
Yeah, I was just chatting or about to type something in the chat, but I can bring it up. This is Grace. In addition to us gelling as a group and doing the spring retreat, which I love being proactive about that, because I think it's really valuable for us to come together, especially as we're gelling on our identity and our role in the community. I had mentioned briefly to Jessica at one point about having HPRS members attend the National Humanities and Data Consortium conference. And that is happening April 28th through the 30th. And so, as most of you know, I'm leaving on maternity leave. This is my last meeting. And of course, I want to pepper this group with all of my ideas before I go. And so I would love it if we could explore what the budget option might be to send 1 to 2 members, because I really think that getting informed on national best practices could also help us to further identify our role in the community. I've been to the conference myself twice and find it highly valuable, and would love to see others go as well.
Yeah, this is Jessica. I can just jump in and say, Yvonne and I attended the fall session of this conference just, dear God, last month. And just to get a feel for it, neither one of us had ever been to this conference, and it was really good. So I would wholeheartedly support us having the ability to have a scholarship, or however we want to structure it, to allow, I think we could probably make 2 work pretty easily. Advisory council members go to this particular conference. And then starting in June, when the new planning grant starts, we can have that conversation about what is the right size to put into that budget going forward, since it will be a new budget year at that point.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was a great conference. I feel like it happened and then we all jumped into shelter planning and it turned into kind of well, that was fun. But we really did learn some really cool things that I'm really excited about sharing with the Coordinated Entry Committee. In particular, knowing that process of about the evaluation and assessment process is happening. So can't wait to get through that and see those learnings and then go forward with that committee. And yes, that type of networking with other COCs was great.
I think this is also, just a note, I mean, it's great that there's a scholarship available. I think that we can also check around if some of us providers, because I know, I think Colin on my team is going and that was with us, right? So, and Colin sits on the statewide HMIS and data and works on coordinated entry. So hopefully, thanks for bringing it up, Grace, because hopefully there's some additional people that might be planning to go with their roles that just might be parallel to some of the work so that someone that might need a scholarship in this space is able to do that.
Mhm.
I'd love to highlight asking someone to champion this while I'm away. Just want to put that on somebody and have them volunteer to make sure it happens.
I'm not volunteering to champion it for Grace, but I will say from the coalition side, I will be the support for whoever champions it to help make the travel arrangements and things like that. If you have multiple people interested and want to have some kind of application process, I can help support through that.
I think people think I have an ulterior motive to champion because it's in New Orleans. That's a fun place in April. I think that's when the some of the big festivals are. Yeah, I'm not sure that I'm the right champion, but I definitely know that Covenant House will have our data team there, but Grace, we'll make sure that we have representation in the space for it.
There you go.
We won't let it fall off the radar.
All right. I'll champion it if no one else does, because
There you go.
That's about 100 miles from where the kids are.
There you go. You're a great champion for it. Okay. As I just now closed my thing. Hold on one second. Okay. Roger, can you help lead this section?
Sure. So after some discussion in the community, I'd like to bring forward a resolution of support to reconstitute the Houseless Resource Advisory Council, which at one time was the point of ACEH originally, back in the reorganization of 2017, 2018. And it was intended to be the voice of the homeless community, all the way out in front. And so during a recent period where the larger community, as well as the individuals who were unhoused at that time, experienced some systemic-wide trauma. And during that time of chaos and everybody trying to figure out what was going on, HRAC ended up getting inadvertently, in my opinion, dismantled. And so this resolution is to reconstitute that and to reestablish the role that it played, being the point into the homeless community to actually bring a voice from the front lines back to the HBRS and the coalition. And so this resolution will instruct, should I read it?
Yes.
A resolution of the Homeless Prevention and Response System Advisory Council in support of the reconstitution of the Homeless Response Advisory Council. Whereas the Homeless Response Advisory Council, HRAC, served as an autonomous body, providing legitimate voice and representation for individuals with lived experience of homelessness. And whereas during a period of significant community trauma, circumstances led to the potential or actual dismantling of HRAC without proper due process. And whereas this dissolution may have impeded HRAC's ability to fulfill its vital role in the community and represent those with lived experience. And whereas there remains a crucial need to address unresolved matters and ensure proper representation of individuals with lived experience in homeless response systems. Now therefore be it resolved that the Homeless Prevention and Response System Advisory Council, one, formally acknowledges that the dissolution or dismantling of HRAC may have occurred without due process during a period of significant community trauma. Two, requests that the Anchorage Coalition to End Homelessness undertake efforts to reconstitute HRAC to the fullest extent possible. Three, supports providing HRAC with the opportunity to engage in the meaningful discussions regarding its dissolution, address and resolve past issues, process the trauma that contributed to its dissolution, and determine its own future direction and organizational fate. Be it further resolved that this council recognizes the severe trauma experienced by numerous individuals during the relevant period, that such trauma should be accepted as a sufficient explanation for actions that may warrant future review, and that no castigation or blame should be directed towards those who were impacted by these events. So that's the extent of it. My discussion is really focuses down on the last piece, that when we go through times of mass trauma, everybody starts pointing fingers at everybody else, and it gets really, really messy. And during this last period of a couple of years, I have done some finger pointing myself that I would like to take ownership of, but also that this is a way forward for everybody involved to level the playing field and get back to business. So I would urge everyone to support this resolution.
Great job, Roger. Thanks for bringing this forward. Do we have any idea of what the impact on the coalition or the coalition response is to this? Since
Yeah,
you're-
we've talked,
Go
yeah,
ahead.
sure. We've talked about it internally. We talked about it with you and Robin a few weeks ago. And then I talked about it a little bit at the executive committee meeting also. I don't have any issue with this resolution as it's written. I will say this is gonna go take everyone back a little bit to when I was on the advisory council, not here. But we did talk about at the time forming a committee of the advisory council that was essentially a lived experience advisory committee. That would then have a place at the executive committee. So if it was a committee of the advisory council, the chair of that committee and co-chair in this new format would have a seat at the executive committee, which I think is an ongoing goal that the HPRS and the advisory council has had, is to have more people with lived experience in a decision-making role for the advisory council. So I did bring that up at the executive committee meeting and would just bring that up again, that might be the right structure for this. But in terms of the support, the coalition supports this. The coalition can provide staffing to be able to help support it just like we would any other committee or any other council that was formed as part of the COC.
So Roger, do you have a recommendation or a preference? So I'm trying to understand it. So if it was under the coalition, right? I love Jess's recommendation that a chair or vice chair would have a placement, on the executive committee of the HPRS Advisory Council. And that's one way, or the other way would be that it would be under the council. Is that kind of what I'm hearing you say, Jess?
Well, no, it would be either under the council or it would be its own organization, its own council.
Okay.
And so I guess those are the two options. The way it existed in the past was as its own council that had an advisory role to the ACEH board. And then when the bifurcation happened, it just was its own council. It didn't really have any clear path. And
Okay.
I think that's what ended up happening during the pandemic, when it was
Yes.
like,
Yes.
there was no real path and connection there. And then the biggest connection that ATRAC had was that the meetings were held in person. You know, it was this group of people coming together to talk. And when the pandemic took that away, I think
Well,
that led to a lot of,
We existed a couple years into the pandemic.
Oh, yeah,
and-
definitely.
And we were streaming meetings out of the
Yep,
Sullivan Arena.
out of the Sullivan
and-
and then down at
And just
Centennial.
prior to a significant runoff election, we got invited not to be there and, you know, and then all of that rolled into, Centennial.
Mhm.
And so all these traumas got mixed up together and some really, unfortunate, experiences that certain folks had to walk through in their growth journeys. And, the end result, I believe, is now working out to the best for those folks that we actually advocate for. And so I would be, most interested in reconstituting HERAC and then giving that group the options and let it make its own decisions, whether to, stay an autonomous out there, to come under the, ACEH, you know, and present the options to them at that time.
And remind me, was it a 501? I mean, is it its own, whenever we say it's its own entity?
No,
Okay,
Not its own legal entity, but they did have, their own charter. And not bylaws because it wasn't its own entity, but there was a charter. I can definitely dig
Well-
through some historical
well,
documents for it.
right, and
Yeah.
it was very simple.
Mhm.
As the point into the community, we would talk to the homeless folks and say if there's an issue, the currently or formerly homeless folks, if there's an issue they want to bring before the community, that to have a voice on the floor, and to vote, the only thing they had to do was show up to the meetings, and sign in as either currently or formerly homeless, according to their own definitions of what that might mean.
Mhm.
and I think some of it too, correct me if I'm wrong, those with the historical knowledge, right? We've now also worked really hard to, come into spaces where some of the lived experience and their participation is compensated, right? And so do either see any problems with it not being connected, or would it be maybe like a contract agreement with the coalition that would then allow for the disbursement of funds for those with lived experience participating in conversations? You know, I just know it's certain, especially, you know, times of year when we may have applications or various other things, there's a big demand, you know, there's a big need for that voice. And I think that one of the things that I've really worked even, you know, within my own organization is to make sure compensation looks more than just like, you know, pizza to come into the room, right? Like what can, you know, do either of you see any problem with it being its own separate entity for that to be occurring?
Yeah, I wouldn't see any problem with that, but I would want to be very careful not to decide what the organization itself does or doesn't want. I would think it
Yeah.
would very important for them to have the conversation and to make their own choices. From my past experiences with nonprofits and with advocacy groups, once money is introduced into the dynamic, it changes way, you know, possibly to the negative. So I could see this group, you know, making choice to go one way or the other,
Mhm.
and possibly to partner with a nonprofit that can provide those services with them.
Yeah,
but again, I wouldn't want to get ahead of them in the decision-making process.
So a motion to approve this resolution is really the start around the conversation of healing and bringing together a group, and then as the group of HRAC, then they can help make some of their own kind of counsel and advice on where they might fit in, whether it's their own entity or under HPRS or under or dotted line. I don't like to use the word under, but dotted line with the coalition.
Yeah,
Is that-
its ongoing mission would be to empower the voice of the homeless to provide a platform for individuals to speak, be heard, and be considered. And with that, I think I'd like to make the motion to approve this.
There are a few of us who have hands up.
Oh, sorry, I can't even see those. Let me
Oh,
get into the. I don't even see any here. So whoever has hands up, let's. Oh, there you go, Will.
Thanks. Thanks for bringing this to our attention, Roger. And I just want to start with, like, all the events of this, like, preceded certainly, like, my involvement in both the advisory council and HPRS. And so, yeah, I don't really have like myself much context for any of like the background for what this is describing. And what the resolution to me seems to be doing, like, a few things. One is talking about like moving forward and kind of reconstituting in some form the HRAC, which I definitely support. I think we need to give opportunities to people with lived experience and make sure that those voices are heard and empowered, and and so I'm in support of that. The part or portions that, like, I feel a little bit more hesitant on, because I don't have that context, or things that kind of relate back to some of the previous events that I don't, again, have any like knowledge or context for myself. In particular, things talking about like with respect to due process, and part of this is like me looking at it with like my like legal term lens and everything, that like due process has like particular meanings, at least in like the law. And so, like, I don't know the circumstances of the dismantling. I can see and acknowledge that there seems to have been harm and trauma related to this situation, but I don't know the circumstances of how it ended. And so, like, I'm a little bit uncomfortable about the portions talking about like without due process.
We could certainly amend that language. I don't think that language is critical to the resolution.
Yeah, I would support maybe an amendment to. I would defer to you, Roger, to what makes sense to remove related to that. But yeah, I hope that we can bring in more lived experience voices to our discussions. And again, thanks for bringing this up, Roger.
Thank you. And I'm trying to find where that.
I'm the other hand.
Yeah,
If
Grace.
it's time. Yeah, I 100% support more lived experience, especially infusing our group with knowledge of our community, and helping us to make big decisions. We don't want to do this alone. I also really appreciate the discussion point about not relying on free labor. And I know that was definitely a topic that we covered during our retreat. And we discussed, having positions within the HPRS council, at least 2 that were funded. And so I would love to request, I think that if HRAC is brought back, then I feel like it would meet that need. But I also, being on the compliance committee, we're updating our governance documents to include ex officio positions. And so ensuring that there's that overlap is important to me as well. And so, you know, I see a couple pathways forward. One, either continuing to move forward with those 2 positions we discussed on the HPRS AC that are funded, that are lived experience, or sort of converting, you know, whatever budget line item we had there into the HERAC. I don't know how to say it. So that's kind of obviously my full support. I'm the nuts and bolts kind of perspective. And so want to make sure that we cover all those bases.
I was about to pull up our bylaws. Sometimes bylaws restrict the compensation of council members, but we could figure out how to word that within our bylaw for, you know, that's why I think sometimes like within the coalition, they may have a little more latitude and resources to kind of support that. You know, like I know, for example, the YESI grant that was just awarded, Youth Systems Improvement Grant, there is resources in there for the compensation, right? As opposed to a role of a board member that might not have the typical role as compensating. So I'm just trying to look and see if I can find that.
I don't think there's anything specific in the governance charter around it. And I liked your comment about the, like a contractual arrangement that's not really a formal contract, but we could create an MOU that structures how the compensation works. And then the compensation isn't coming from.
Right.
Because the advisory council governs the COC, and so the funding wouldn't be coming from the COC, it would be coming from ACH. And so I think then you have kind of bypassed some of the conflicts that I think you were alluding to that could exist in the governance charter, where you're getting paid to make the decisions that influence from the people that you're influencing. So it would be a little bit more arm's length in that way. That I think we could work that out. And yes, we did identify the funding in the YESI grant to be able to support a youth lived experience position, either within the advisory council or working with the advisory council. And then the planning grant has the funding that supports a non-youth person.
So I know we've been working to secure that funding, right? I think
Yeah, we
both
should
now.
have a contract here in the next, gosh, I'm gonna say weeks.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
So as the maker of this motion, I would like to amend it. And in the second whereas, where circumstance led to the potential or actual dismantling of HERAC, I would like to strike without proper due process in its entirety. And I think that might solve that concern. And with that amendment, I move the motion.
Here is
think-
one more section. This is Emily. Sorry to jump in, but there is actually one more section, item number 1, where it does mention due process again. Will,
Yep.
is that the same? So we may need to strike that term. I don't know how you want to rework that, but I just wanted to point that out. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to point that out, and then I think we might need to vote on the amendments before voting on the document as a whole procedurally. Maybe a possibility for this is to strike without due process, and then potentially even take out may have formally acknowledged the dissolution and dismantling of HRAC occurred during a period of significant community trauma.
Sounds good to me. I mean, I'll accept it as a friendly amendment.
And then I'll second I guess, assuming Roger, you're first moving to vote on the amendment, I'll second the vote for second, I call to vote on amendment.
Sounds good. As amended.
So I'm going back into my memory bank of Robert's rules. So if Roger moved it, we didn't get a second. We got a second for the move, for the motion, correct?
Yeah, Will.
Right? So
For
then
the
that brings it
amendment.
into question. So then we can go to the friendly amendment, right? Grace?
Sharon?
Yeah, I think that works. I
Okay,
think that works, because if it's on the floor and you were debating it on the floor,
right.
you can have a friendly amendment that has no objections and then move to vote on the original item as amended.
And the friendly amendment removes both incidences of may have occurred without due process during, correct? So it's acknowledges the dissolution or dismantling of HRAC. And it ends at that comma for both of them, correct?
Sharon has some.
Okay, Sharon?
Yeah, I'll just say that, technically there's no such thing as a friendly amendment.
Oh,
It's
there
an
you
amendment,
go.
because
Oh.
often people say, oh, well, I made the motion and now I want to change it, and it's a
Yeah.
friendly amendment. So if someone makes an amendment, a proposed amendment, and it's seconded, then it needs to be voted on, or you could just
Okay.
ask, is there any objection? Hearing none, the amendment's approved, and then we'll resume debate on the
Okay.
amended, the amended document.
That
Which
sounds
I think is
accurate.
sort of what you were saying you were
Yeah,
gonna do,
yeah.
but
So we can remove these and, right, and do the vote on that. Or are you saying,
Sure.
do we have to strike down the resolution?
oh, no. You say
Gotcha.
like, here are the proposed changes.
Okay, got it.
It's been moved and seconded, and you could ask, is there any discussion on it? And if you
Got
don't
it.
hear anything, to say, is there any opposition?
Got it.
And then we'd be looking at a new resolution of support that has those changes in it.
Got it.
And then,
Okay, so there are the two highlighted recommended changes to the resolution. Do we have any additional discussions? Let me check for my hands up.
No
Okay,
hands. Can I move to pass the amended resolution?
yep.
Roger,
The
I'll
motion?
okay.
So Grace moves, second,
Roger,
Roger. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Okay.
Aye.
All those opposed or wishing to abstain from the vote? Okay, seeing and hearing none, then Roger, thanks for bringing this forward and the resolution is passed.
Thank you, everybody, for supporting it. It means a lot to me.
It means a lot to the community. It's an important part of this process. Okay. Wow, HKHMIS governance document update. That's some fun, sexy stuff. Sharon, go ahead and bring that home for us.
It is exciting. It is exciting. No, it's gonna check. There are some data committee members here on the call. And Kim she is a data committee member from ICA. So we talked about this yesterday. Ordinarily, we have a week-long sort of gap in between our committee meeting and this meeting, but because of the holiday break, the minutes or our notes from our meeting have been dropped into the chat box in case you want to read those. But this is the thing that we focused on in our meeting yesterday. We looked at, these are sort of, these governance documents are updated on an annual basis. This is sort of like a routine pro forma thing. It's not a big deal. And in my opinion, our committee looked at the recommended changes, and we learned that the AKHMIS Advisory Board has approved them. We had a good discussion with Kim, who sort of has a really good understanding of all these changes, and she basically said that their most significant changes were to wording. Certain things were removed, but that's because they had been added in other sections and so on. So it's just sort of like things got moved around, and there was not anything particularly substantive that changes this. And so the committee, we had no objection to a motion to recommend approval to this body. If there's anyone from the data committee, or if Kim, if you wanted to add anything, or if anyone has any questions.
I don't have anything to add. It was really just cleaning things up and moving things that had been moved out of policies and procedures last year into the data quality plan, but hadn't actually been removed from policies and procedures. And so most of it was just cleaning that stuff up so that all of the documents matched one another.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. So I'll make a motion that the advisory council approve all changes to the AKHMIS governance documents.
This is Dave. I'll second that.
Under discussion, this is Jessica. I just wanted to share that the AKHMIS is a statewide data system, so any changes and updates to these have to be approved by both COCs. And the Balance of State Board also met this week, and I serve on that board as the kind of anchorage person there. And that board did approve those changes as well. So if anyone had those questions about whether or not the rest of the state agreed with the changes or had any concerns, I can share that it was passed at their board meeting as well.
Without amendment.
With no amendments.
Yep.
And no.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Jessica. That's actually what I misspoke. I meant to say that the Balance of State approved it rather than the AKHMIS advisory board, because obviously it came out of that body first and then to us and then to the Balance of State. The Balance of State did approve it. Yeah. Thanks for that. That's a good good clarification.
I just want to jump in and say thank you to everybody who is involved in this process. It's a heavy lift and it's much appreciated.
All right. Well, I don't know who's chairing now.
Yeah, I was gonna
Robin?
say, Allison had to step away to get to the sleep away, so if perhaps Robin could step in to chair. Thank you,
Yep.
Robin.
Yep. Okay, so are we at the place then where we can make a motion to approve these changes?
There is a motion on the floor.
Thank you.
I think you could just ask whether there's any opposition to approving the motion.
All right, fair enough. Any opposition to approving the motion?
No.
Okay, hearing none, these amendments will pass. Or updates.
All right.
Okay,
All right. Well, thank you.
thank you. The HPRS AC work session proposal.
Yeah, I guess I'll start on this. This is an idea when we were in the advisory council executive board meeting last week or so. We were talking about the idea of having work sessions. Used to be that on this particular body we had work sessions periodically, and the meeting was a bit longer, usually an hour and a half. We decided, to kind of streamline the meetings. We cut that out. But I think part of what's happened is that we're back into a deliberation and sort of building mode rather than a response mode to an ongoing crisis. And so I think there's maybe more need to get deep into some things. And so Grace and I we had sort of competing thoughts about things. And so I'll let Grace talk about what her thought was, but my thought was that perhaps, we might not need to have this particular meeting every month, but we could say have this advisory council meeting bi-monthly, but we would still meet every month, but every second month would be a work session wherein there would be something that may be brought forward by a committee or something like that they wanted to make some progress on with the benefit of input from a larger group. But that was not, I don't think that was, my approach was widely supported by the advisory council or by the executive board. But it was a thought. It's just the idea that we need to, I think bringing back a work session would be good. And Grace, did you want to? I think your idea was probably better.
Oh, no, I think that we're hoping to encourage thoughts and comments from the rest of the group. So ultimately, I am one of the co-chairs of the compliance committee, and we've really struggled with attendance. I think partly because we had some lofty goals and we wanted to have a more frequent cadence over the summer, and we really dropped off on attendance. And I've been a part of many boards and committees where getting that subcommittee work, that really is the heart of what we do. I know that I myself am interested in multiple subcommittee work, the efforts that different subcommittees are responsible for in this board. And so we're just trying to be creative and brainstorm how we can optimize our time together, and with the umbrella discussion of our efforts in the retreat and trying to identify our role in the community as a board, and the presence that we bring to the work that we do. We're going to get informed by all the work that we do together in subcommittees. We thought about, my idea was to just have like a slice of our time together each month, dedicated to like one issue where we could all kind of brain trust together, but that might not be feasible from the nuts and bolts of things. But I do really feel us building momentum as a group and wanting to participate. We're getting, new folks interested from the community that are raring to go. And so we just want to find a solution where we can get some of that subcommittee work done that's sort of on hold because we haven't been able to have attendance. So that's the ultimate solution we're looking for. We're open to all sorts of ideas. And go. Will, I see your hand up.
Thanks, Grace. And Sharon as well. I, agree with y'all's thoughts that I think it'd be good to have like increase like work time as a larger group. I've felt, because I've been involved in the community prioritization and the data committees, and I feel like there's a fair amount of like overlap between committees or a lot of overlap in terms of like the borders cross over, or they're not like discrete borders. And I think it can be hard to coordinate when we're all in our like subcommittee silos. And so I think having more kind of time together to like work on particular issues or overall issues, I think would be really beneficial and, help with the momentum and help like push things forward. And I know initially when we had changed from kind of the 2-hour meetings to the 1-hour meetings, there was a period of time where I felt like these kind of monthly meetings weren't necessarily as productive as I would like. It was kind of more just like information, which can be useful, but I'm kind of the mind that like, okay, information can be sent in an email, and then like meetings are a better time to like work through things and make decisions, and when you need kind of like actually people at the same time. Yeah, I'm open to either kind of those proposals or alternative proposals. If there are other maybe like special times where, okay, there's a particular issue that we want to address that again like relates to multiple committees, maybe that happens in a period of time, like maybe we expand this meeting time as it sounds like you're suggesting, Grace, and covering those at that point. But in general, I'm open to ideas and support creating more or providing the opportunity and space and container to meet more as a group.
Great. Any other discussion points?
Grace, I'll just share that I absolutely agree with, or I like Sharon's thoughts. I know I shared, I think in January of this year, if not last fall, that it felt like we weren't having a lot of action items for our organized or our committee. And it does feel as though it's kind of like a listening session every month. And then I have to say that sometimes I step out of these meetings, and even though I'm on a committee, it doesn't feel like I'm doing enough, you know, and when people say, oh, what are the accomplishments of this council? You know, what is the actions? And obviously we've been involved in helping with the application and the plan, and we have kind of these intermittent needs, but I do feel as though some kind of combination of both would be impactful for me, serving on this group, because it has felt like that. And I think when we talked about it, the idea was, well, maybe we have one meeting virtually and one meeting in person. And I know that didn't really pan out. So it also feels sometimes that when we're not together, we're not accomplishing as much. So I would absolutely propose, if it's not a biannual meeting and then biannual work session, and those sessions are in person, that we at least maybe have a good quarterly work session, because I feel that's those two things I'm missing from this group. So what I'm saying is I want to be told and asked to do more. And I feel like that is helpful, at least maybe part of the time in person.
Well, I can answer something like the question. Things you can do to keep it. Yeah. No.
I guess the nuts and the bolts of this are sort of how we should proceed. I'm looking, we have 2 minutes left in our meeting. I do have to go shortly after 5. I propose that perhaps we provide a couple suggestions for routes we could choose via email, and you guys can give us your thoughts too. And then we can proceed with setting up a plan for these sort of productive meetings. And I really think and hope that it can infuse us with a purpose and more motivation to do what we're doing, the good work in our community. So Sharon, can I volunteer you and I to do that, to provide some suggestions? Okay, yes. Great, we'll do that.
Awesome, thank you both.
Yeah, thank you both. I think you're right. I think it's important, and I feel like it always is part of our conversation. I feel like no matter what meetings we're in, this always kind of comes up. So I think that it's a great idea for us to really address it. So do we just want to make sure that this is, if you guys send out the emails, that this is also just on our agenda for our next meeting, so that we can, really kind of confirm with the direction that we're going to go? Okay.
Yeah.
I think that there's also a chance we could vote on it in advance of the next agenda drafting session, so that we might implement it immediately.
Okay. Great.
Yep. That'll be our goal for sure. Yep.
That's great. Thank you. All right. Is there anything else on the agenda? Oh, COC reports. All right. I know we are at time. Does anybody have any comments or questions, or anything that they want to discuss about their reports?
Go ahead.
Very quickly, I want to thank all the other chairs for their work, and in particular, Grace, thanks for your work before you leave. And I'm excited about the work that y'all are doing with these ex officio seats. And so I just want to check in, especially before you leave, are there like next steps for us to do right now? It sounds like trying to maybe finalize some of the terms for these ex officio seats, and because I'm very excited about this and I'm hopeful to help press things forward.
Was that directed at Grace specifically, Will, or did you have
or anyone, I guess, compliance committee? Are there next steps with respect to the ex officio positions that we need to do at this stage, or?
Yeah, so for those of you who just an FYI, so the compliance committee is working to adopt defined ex officio positions to plug into our governance documents. And I've heard conversations over the course of multiple meetings, and I'm trying to get the full list, because I know a lot of us have talked to, somebody at AHFC and Farina Brown, and we're trying to get, what the title should be for Farina, or we want the input of these different departments, but we also want them to be evergreen. And we want it to be all of the, various positions you've invited. And so make sure that you email me or Roger, the co-chairs of the compliance committee, with those ideas on ex officio positions that you think would be critical and that we can incorporate. NeighborWorks. Oh wait, that looks like a volunteer thing, but yeah. So any positions ex officio that you want to include in the governance thing, we will plug it into the draft and then we will present it to you and then we'll vote on it at a meeting down the road. So this is first step.
Thanks. And thanks for all the work y'all are doing there.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so those should go to the governance committee itself, those requests and those changes. Is that correct, Grace?
The compliance committee, yeah, to incorporate it into the draft and then we'll present it to you guys. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay.
So me or Roger.
Okay, great. All right.
There's a section at the end.
Well, hey, I don't want to grade say, but
Is there an ACH report?
I can give one. It is 5:02. I don't want to take up a whole bunch of people's time. But one thing I do want to share from my report is that the application for the COC Builds project went in today. Thank you so much to the compliance committee serving as an informal rank and review committee for that particular project. But really happy to share that the project that was submitted chosen and then submitted was a project proposed by the Anchorage Affordable Housing and Land Trust to purchase a hotel and convert 42 rooms into 42 units of permanent supportive housing along with supportive services on site. So using that same model of site-based PSH for that particular facility. So I feel really good about the chances on this one. There's a set aside for small population states. So we're not competing against the entire country on this one. We're just competing against 11 other states. I think we should hear something. I'm hearing two different paths. One, that it will be after January before people hear things, or that it will be something that is rushed through and be announced in early January. So I think it could go one of two ways, but either way, I think we'll know something by February and have some negotiations in process if we're awarded. And if we're not, we'll know that we need to just keep trying.
that's a great update. Thank you.
Thanks, Jessica. Appreciate that. All right. Is there any other reports from this particular piece of government updates or operational updates from ACH, or are we good there?
No, we're good. I'll give a really in-depth one next month.
All right, that's great. Okay, so now we have an opportunity for member and public comment. Is there anybody that would like to share a comment or ask a question?
It's one of these things where, is there a plan?
And I can't see everybody, so I don't know if there's a raised hand out there or not.
We have, so in person here at the office, we did have Jamie, and I just wanted to make sure he had an opportunity to talk if he wanted to, and he doesn't have to.
I'll keep it short and brief. Hi, Jamie Lopez, formerly Coalition. Basically I go out to camps, and I cook daily. I've been, took the money I made here and used it to pay for a rental car. Only mistake I made. And I was taking hot food literally daily, up to 5 days a week, feeding 150 to 170 people. Then I'd go to various pantries at the end of the day, get product, sort it, stage it, take it up to 2 a.m. at night. And so while there have been some deficiencies in the system, a lot of people have been failed in any number of ways. And the goal is to try and improve it so that people stay alive long enough to get into housing, whether it's PSH or hotels. My focus is to try and keep people alive. And I think, it's good while, there is an outreach event once a day I think you have to look larger than that. And the reason why is because, you know, a brick of ramen and a bag of, you know, potato chips, that'll last you a minute. But in the meantime, there are social costs and political costs involved. And if you find ways to stabilize people, it's ultimately going to help in the long run. And I guess maybe, you know, this is the start of a discussion to try and find some ways to stabilize people even further, because the 5-year anchored home plan could easily turn into a 10-year anchored home plan. And it all depends on how many people you think are out there. And unfortunately, HMIS is built on getting data and collecting data. And part of it is knowing the size of the population. And when you cannot determine the population, because it's a hit or miss point in time thing, it means that your ceiling could be a lot higher than you think. I guess I'll just leave it at that. But I wanted to thank somebody for inviting me. And I'll try not to take over the meeting, but thank you very much for your time. All right.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. Is there anybody else in person that wanted to share anything? Okay, I'm not hearing anybody, and again, I can't see any hands, so I don't know if there are any other hands up, but I am going to assume, since we've gone to good news and celebrations, that that was it for comments. So thank you, everybody. Thanks, Grace, and we'll see you in a few months. Good luck with everything. Thinking of you. All right, so good news and celebrations. Gosh, I saw a lot of things kind of happening in the chat. Does anybody want to share any good news or celebrations or upcoming events?
I think in the chat, we saw a lot of Thanksgiving opportunities. We're putting together some information on both where you can get the ingredients for a Thanksgiving meal, as well as an actual Thanksgiving meal that somebody else already made. So like more like a plated meal. But most of the people who have provided them in the past will be again. Shell in Mountain View is doing a Thanksgiving dinner. Mama Carol's is doing a Thanksgiving dinner. Downtown Hope Center and Gospel Rescue Mission will both have a Thanksgiving dinner. So we'll have a one-pager that we'll have out to the 3rd Avenue Navigation Center to be able to post. We'll have it. It'll be out on social medias, but all of the different ways someone might need help with a meal, we'll have it available.
My understanding also is that Beans is doing a meal at,
So, yes, and
at their
Beans.
4th Avenue, and they are calling for volunteers.
Yes.
And so that's that. I think it's going to be downstairs
Mhm.
at their building. That's like behind the Lucky Wishbone, but on the other side of it, I think.
Yeah, it's like down the hill.
Yeah, you might have to park in the Lucky Wishbone side.
Is there any possibility or any discussion about people that can potentially take food to Davis Park, because there is a tremendous population there right now and they don't have the ability to travel?
Yeah.
I don't know. In
We've
the
been,
past, yeah, I was helping with that, but
Yeah.
We might be able to, you know, I might be able to do that.
yeah,
Okay.
we've been talking about it
All right.
too, and have reached out to Shell to see if that's something we can help support additional meals there that we can then have someone bring down the street, so.
So apologies to the group for having our conversation here in the office.
Should I step up? Okay.
I'm sorry, Robin, we'll give the meeting back to you.
On the horse. Thanks, everybody. Okay, and thanks, Jessica, for that, in terms of especially getting some information into 3RNC for that people can access for that. Okay. And here's our list of additional advocacy opportunities. Is there anything in particular that anybody wants to point out?
It's not on there, because it's still in this month, but there is a special meeting of the Assembly on the 26th. Right now, the only agenda item is the approval of the notice of intent to award, the contract to MASH, which would expand the emergency cold weather shelter beds, by an additional 123 beds. So I know, a lot of us were expecting that number to be 200. Hearing that it's 123, we've been having those conversations about what that means, what that does to planning. But just to share with everyone, there is a special meeting where that is on the agenda.
Jessica, do you know what facilities they're?
Yeah, it's gonna be at the Alex Hotel. So basically, it's the other building of the Alex Hotel, so the entire Alex Hotel will all be shelter beds at that point.
Okay. And then if that gets passed, is there a start date for that?
If it's approved on the 26th, I guess conceivably Muni Procurement could sign a contract in one day. If there's anybody on here from Muni Procurement, I apologize, but my faith is not in that happening in one day. So I would anticipate that following week.
Okay.
Because the Thanksgiving holiday, I doubt anyone's gonna do anything for those
Yeah.
4 days, so.
Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate that information.
Yep. Oh, and then I guess the second piece would be, there's also an RFP being published, I believe tomorrow, that will be for, potential operators for warming centers. So that outreach will be out there, and if you're a provider that might be interested in standing up warming, check it out.
Great. Thank you. That's good to know. Okay, so it looks like our next meeting is December 19th. So at this point, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Roger.
Move
motion
to
to
adjourn. It's Sharon, I second.
Great. All right, well, thanks, everybody. Thanks again for all the work that you do, and we'll see you next month. Have a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Same to you. Bye, everyone.
Do you thanks?
Bye, everyone.